What's going on, dudes, and all that bullshit? This is gonna take as long as it need track your packages on the. Well, check that out in a second. This might go a little bit longer than it needs to be, but oh man, what is all this bullshit? I keep getting these shitty updates. I'm trying to verify something. Ah, my hand. All right, I should have done this first, but I don't care. All right, so for lack of a better term, for whatever reason, I do think there's synchronicity in whatever the fuck was going on with Tiff. Again, like the whole issue is that she never communicated what was going on and stole money from me and my niece. Okay, feds were involved in all that bullshit. Okay, and it's not like she's doing all this shit for any good. She just wants clout. She's just trying to have people think she's done something with her life when she really hasn't. Like you really haven't done anything with your life. Like no one, none of these people are like you really are the shittiest judge of character if you thought this would lead to anything. Like you are retarded. Like so stupid, so useless, so fucking useless. The only reason why I think you would even still be in that eighth grade mindset bullshit is because you live in what I call the fantasy realm. Now, I forgot to mention this part or whatever the fuck because who cares, right? Uh, at the end of the day, people just try to use other people, and it's up to you to like make sure you're not getting screwed over. So I do remember when I was doing that, lack of a better term, we'll call it merc work for the state delegate. Reason why I thought it was even a good idea was because, believe it or not, that motherfucker was from California back when it was still cool, and played a lot of tabletop like Dungeons and Dragons, Cyberpunk from the '80s games. And at the time, I can't even get into it, but dude, my houses were all kinds of retarded at the time, and somehow that Russian crazy bitch who helped me sew up my face was like sneaking me all kinds of prescriptions from her mom, who was a psychiatrist and all that shit. It was crazy. Like I can't even get into it. But that plus festivals like shrooms and Klonopin and the Vyvanse allegedly, and the acid allegedly, and what's the other, the DMT, and like all the shit was going on, right? So it started in 2009 and went until about February, March of 2010 is when I started having the crazy, trippy visions, and when I was basically running a cult in Charlottesville. So not going to go into it, but the shit I said about her mom, you know, I'm not getting into that. That's her own personal thingy. I don't want to mention shit like that because it's going to get her excited. But I did say that years ago, around the same time as when that happened, I had that crazy shit when I was on probation, and then I swear to God, I had what's called an astral projection. Most of those things have to have like a catalyst of something, so it's around the time of her tragedy happened. Now, probably what happened was because that, believe it or not, was a positive for me that turned my life around. So there's always like universe does the karma switch. So I don't know what was going on for her in 2009 to 2010, but for me it was probably the shittiest year of my life. But anyways, uh, that was so for lack of a better term. See, like the key to the cult, just like the key to like the Mormon cult is religion, whatever you want to call it, is having everyone have the same fantasy. Celestial kingdom, temple, all that bullshit, right? So once I had people like doing what I would say in the real world for bullshit I would make in a Dungeons and Dragons game as the dungeon master, it just we just started like like doing deep dives into like Dungeons and Dragons books. So around the time that the Book of Undead Secrets came out is when I started like having like visions of, and again, like Vecna and astral projections of Jesus or God or whatever the fuck. It's just like whatever bullshit you're doing, your brain is gonna like have that appear to you so you can like quantify it. It's like other people would say they see nothing. Some people would say they see a cloud. Some people would say they see like a ginormous chipmunk. It doesn't fucking matter. At the time, I was deep into that bullshit. And what we were doing was we were the Shatter Kai. So the Shatter Kai is essentially in uh oh fuck, Forgotten Realms. There's like the afterlife area. It's like only the undead can go there. But there's a branch of humans that exist there and in the real world simultaneously, and they are called the Shatter Kai. And essentially what it is as you like actually die, your essence kind of like according to this bullshit would fade away and you would enter the Shadowfell. So or like the afterlife area and like the in between is the Shadowfell. So what the Shadow Kai would do is first they would train really, really hard to get like super, super strong, and then they would essentially like take themselves within like an inch or two of death, and then like live that way. And then if you healed up too much, you would do it again because you had to be your only connection to the physical realm was pain. Like nothing else mattered. If it wasn't for the intense, excruciating pain you felt, you would not even know you were alive. For all and purposes, you were essentially already dead. So, and not to go into and sound stupid, but again, keep in mind like mushrooms allegedly, and Clozapine, and Vyvanse, and DMT, and all that bullshit allegedly, right? So a few times I believed I was actually having conversations with Amanda. And the reason why I stopped, uh, well, after I graduated to a point where I no longer needed to do this, I did it one more time and I actually saw a vision of like what would have happened if she hadn't passed on so early. And it was like me and her being like married and having a bunch of kids, and they were all daughters and they were teenagers, and I was just in a room and nothing I said mattered and no one would listen to me and I had to pay for everything and I was just fucking miserable. And I was thinking to myself, why did I let this happen? And that's when I stopped wanting to talk to her anymore. It's kind of like I want to get into it, but like acceptance and all that bullshit. It was like I don't need to go down that path anymore. It's served its purpose. But anyways, so I won't get into that. I talked about on a video that got taken down when I had to sew up my face. Again, like I got into a bunch of like again people who like talk about fighting normally either don't know about fighting or are stupid because you shouldn't glorify fighting, especially like oh I'm a street fighter. Retarded. Again, like you can be the best fighter in the ring. You talk shit to the wrong fucker on the street and your ass is on the fucking pavement. Not trying to bring it up. I respect the guy 100%. BJ Penn, 4 or 5 time whatever champion, got drunk, talked shit to someone at a bar, guy sidestepped him, punched him in the face, and knocked him out in one punch. Because there's no weight classes, there's no preparing, it's just right now, right? Anyways, so actually this whole shit started because I got into that street fight with those at the Buddha biker bar, but not with bikers, some ghetto wannabe losers from Richmond who were harassing my friend, and then they followed us to the car, and I beat the shit out of all of them under the street light. And basically, you couldn't beat up all of them, so I just beat up that one motherfucker, and they went from trying to like kick me and to like trying to pull me off that motherfucker, and the cops literally came and like looked at me and were like, "We can't arrest him because like obviously he was getting jumped and they all ran away from him." Like literally, they ran away and then the cops showed up because the cops were like basically watching the whole thing because they were like, "If we get involved, we might get hit." And then after the cops left, because they're like, "Well, you should file a report." The motherfucker whose ass I was kicking so hard, they rolled up in some shitty like Honda, like a white Honda. Fucker rolled out with a fucking tire iron, and I just like went like this, and the fucker drops it and gets back into the car and it drives off. because that's how I dropped him the first time. I just kind of went like this. He swung. I ducked in, threw him down. It was crazy. I bit that motherfucker. I remember because people they're trying to pull me off him, and I like broke free. Fucking scalped that piece of shit. Anyways, yeah, but that's how it all started because that's when someone, some Russian chick named Maya, not Tasia, bought me the hard copy of the Book of Undead Secrets. Anyways, so um, I was the most shatter Kai. I experienced the most pain all the time. That was like you would like, there was no hope in you experiencing my level of pain. There's just not. Anyways, so but around the time, so I did the thing about how I had a sew up my face because again, like I had no insurance. So I go to the hospital against my will. Someone talked me into it, and they basically just gave me a band-aid and a bill, and told me to get the fuck out. Like literally, they were like, "Well, you should do something about that. So you need to you need to talk to someone. Someone will help you, and then you can come back and give us a bunch of money, and we'll treat you." Like fuck that bullshit. I rubbed some. There was some kind of Tasia was in nursing school, so she got me some kind of like weird like salt thingy that like is antibacterial. So I just rubbed that shit into my thingy, and then I fucking had to like gut my face because if it got infected and gangrene, they'd amputate the neck or whatever the fuck, right? So, anyways, that was when I had a steak knife or some bullshit like that. Not even a steak knife, just like a maybe it was something like that. A steak knife, the nylon thread, and the carpenter sewing needle, the big fucking thick ones for like concrete, and the pliers from the all-purpose tool. And as I was doing that, the blood was gushing out so much that it would come across like this, and then it would Fu Manchu and coagulate, and it would become like thick. And then it got down to the floor, and I just had like a thick jello like beard of blood that just kept, and you could see it just like new blood going over on it and whatnot. Shatter Kai, I did not die, but the hand, I remember that was the second time I saw it because I saw the vision there. And I think it was a combination of all the things I was taking, the loss of blood, and just like meeting someone in power who also played tabletop games and being like, wow, so there's a way to do it and all that bullshit. But I'm not going to get into all that bullshit because I don't want to like accidentally get fucker. And I technically still owe him $2,000 that he's probably still pissed about. But anyways, for the hand, so that one, I remember I did that with some kind of like a tiger claw. It was some kind of like a, because I had to do that in front of people because people just came over. So I decided I would turn it into a show to build the cult following. So I had a tiger claw. It was like a fucking fist weapon with these giant claws sticking out. And I basically just like stuck it in because again, like it wasn't like everyone look at me, I'm cutting myself. It was like I had gone to the doctor against my will. One of the fucking girls who went to UVA was like, "You better go to the doctor. You need help. Someone needs to help you. Where's your family?" And all that bullshit, right? So, anyways, I was like, "Shut the fuck up." So then they take me to the hospital, and they would be like, "You have no insurance, so get the fuck out." That's basically how it went. So I'm now with like infected biohazard in my hand, and I have to like drain it so all the disinfected shit will come out, and then rub that weird medical salt into it and then like hope for the best and wrap it up, which meant, fill it with Neosporin and then paper towel and wrap it with duct tape. So I basically had the tiger claw, allegedly, and all that bullshit, and don't do this at home and all that bullshit. And I basically like hooked uh, right on the spot where it was infected. And it was funny because there's like some thing where like your body will try to fight off the infection, so there's like some kind of like a pussy capsule thing. That didn't hurt at all. The vision, if you want to call it that, we'll call it the anti-astral projection, basically told me to go until I couldn't go anymore. So first it was like, okay, that doesn't hurt. That's just the infection. That's just the infection. That's just the blood. It's like, okay, that's past the bad part. It's like, okay, that's probably like some kind of like ligament or nerve damage. It's like, okay, shit, I think that might be a bone. And then I hooked it and ripped it out. I had to do it real fast, or it would like really just like you can't do that slow. And then I remembered because first the blood was like dark and thick and almost green looking, and then when it came out like red, that's when I was like, okay, I had gone too deep, and then I patched it up. I had to do one of those like things, and the craziest thing is I was actually working as a waiter at this time, so whatever. Anyways, so I had did that because, lack of a better term, that is an actual spell that I can't get into. Like people talk about spell and witches and all that bullshit. Spell is not what you think it is. Like most of what we see in reality is a spell. It's a bullshit illusion spell that douchey losers who hide behind Wizards of Oz screens pull because they know that in reality they have no endurance and they're losers. They need illusions like money and fame and power to get you to do stupid shit because you would never do it otherwise. All right? A spell like a blood ritual, this is the other thing. This is around the time that I got, main reason why I did it. I can't go into all those other things I was taking allegedly and all that stuff. So I had just gotten my pit bull, who was supposed to get sacrificed to the other dogs because she was born with hip dysplasia. So basically, blood sacrifices require blood, and like the arguing and like the like trying to figure out what's going to do and whatnot. The weaker side will be like, oh well, what's stronger than a pit bull? It's from a lineage of fight dogs. Go ahead and sacrifice it. But then it's like, no, I'm stronger. I'm the strongest. If it requires blood and I'm the strongest, then obviously I'll sacrifice my own blood because I'm Shadow Kai and I will not die. And then you do it. But anyways, I remember I felt something like off, and the thingy, demon, devil, vision, whatever you want to call it, was like laughing. And I was like, "What the fuck did you do that? I thought I was your champion. I thought like you're gonna help me." And they were like, "I did help you. When that's healed, then your life will begin. Until then, none of this shit matters. Like nothing matters." Like I was actually pretty big on MySpace at the time, and my Facebook that I used back then, I think had close to 5,000 followers. Probably has like none now, but I was like, believe it or not, pretty fucking popular and all that bullshit. But I started seeing the world differently. Like when you aren't doing things for everyone else and you are the one who needs help, no one will help you ever. And now things are just more complicated and more difficult. Ironically, the first time I realized that as a good thing was when I was going to get a cyber cert that required me to do everything manually, and I couldn't do it because my hands kept seizing up. And I realized then that that would have made me the best at that time, but if I wanted to be the best later, I had to learn how to automate. And I never would have figured that out if my hand had not been hurt. Of course, it's getting there now. Like, it's a lot better, and I can almost see like that. That's not supposed to happen. I can do that and then bring it back. But it's just getting a lot better. And all this drama and bullshit, well, it's been going on, and the feds and that stupid whore thought she was stealing money and whoring around with a bunch of losers and douches for fame and clout. I've just been doing my shit and just working out my hand. And it's gotten to the point now where I can at least do this because that means the thumb is getting better. Because right here, it's the whole hand. Two puncture wounds right there and a cut right there. But again, like it happened and then I had to triage it because I literally went like it look, this is gonna sound crazy. I don't even view it as cutting. I view it as surgery, like barber surgery from like the Middle Ages, because I had gone to the hospital. They told me no. Literally were willing to let me die because I had no insurance, and they encouraged me to beg for money from my family to get insurance money to go give it to the hospitals. I view hospitals as poison factories. Like the doctor's a a poison seller. Like if you know exactly what you need, you might be okay because sometimes some poison will cancel out other poison. But other than that, never go to a hospital. Just poison factory. But anyways, um, uh, like when I left the power plant, probably wouldn't have left the power plant if I hadn't been diagnosed as having carpal tunnel from having so many injuries to my hand. Just things like that. Things like that. So like while all this bullshit's been going on, I've just been like completing my blood ritual from like 2009, 2010 and getting stronger. And like I know that sounds crazy, but that's why people don't do, that's why real magic doesn't exist anymore. Or it's become like black magic where cults will get together and use it on someone else. No one views themselves as strong enough to be the sacrifice. You're not Shatter Kai.